Okay, wonderful. And it looks to me like you can, I got our TV working again, so it looks to me like you can see us both in the screen, okay? Is the visual okay? All right, then let us begin. Talking too much as usual, Kedrak. What can I say? My apologies. So first of all, Tashi Dele, greetings to everybody. Geshe hopes that all is going well and happy in your life. So all of us, we are aiming towards happiness. This is why we cultivate the Dharma. We're aiming towards both temporary and ultimate happiness. And Lama Tsongkhapa gives some reflections about why, as we cultivate towards this happiness, we want to do so with a mind that is open and joyful. So Geshe said that actually, like, we want to have an inner feeling of happiness, and one of the ways that we can do that is we can try physically to bring forth a happy expression. That's one technique. So we want our outer and sort of inner aspect to be one that is happy and joyful. This helps us. And so Geshe is saying, he's not just saying that for the students. That's really important for himself as well as the person who is teaching the Dharma. He wants to do this from the space of a happy mind, and he also wants to show you, to convey you that happiness with his expression. So this is also his duty. And if you don't remind yourself of this, right, if right at the beginning of the session there's something that annoys you, immediately you can get very upset and look very upset, and especially for the teacher, that's not a good thing, right? It's not good for the students. So really, it's important to understand that the opportunity is really here for us. It is definite that if we accumulate the causes for happiness because of the law of cause and result, we will experience happiness. And we actually have all of the facilities that we need to accumulate those causes of happiness. So if we think about a tree that we want to grow, we know that there are certain factors, causes that have to come together, that we can see those physical causes that come together for that tree. But we also know that there are some more subtle causes that we might not necessarily be able to perceive visually. So for that tree to arise, for that happiness to arise, then there are those causes that we accumulate that are easily observable. And there are also those potentialities that are more subtle, that are not as easily observable. And so if we develop a feeling and appreciation for that, then if we develop this outlook, right, even if we just have a short amount of time to engage in the virtuous practice, we will be able to do that with a happy mind. So in order to be able to accumulate that virtue, to have that happiness, we need to establish a foundation of wholesomeness within the mind. There are obstacles to that. So the first step is to relax away those obstacles. So we can think, of that classic example of the mental qualities and the unwholesome minds as being like the factors of heat and cold, right? So we know that when the heat rises in a room, the cold is naturally diminished. So we want to do this. We want to raise the temperature of the positive qualities like love and compassion so we can reduce the hold of the unwholesome minds.
So Geshe
is giving the reference for this example. Yeah, so it's nice. So Geshe is giving the reference for this example. So it's actually a scriptural example that is cited in the Pramanavartika. So the treatise on valid cognition is where you will see the unwholesome and wholesome minds compared to the opposing factors of heat and cold. So because we want the body and mind to be peaceful and relaxed as we embark on the session, then what we want to do is take a moment to establish some peacefulness. Think all of the sort of coarser external appearances as we relax our sense doors and dissolve them. Those appearances slowly dissolve and we touch a state of peacefulness. So one thing that was mentioned, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it, is that the mind's fundamental state, right, is something that is neutral. But at the same time that it is neutral, a state of equanimity, it is pure luminosity, which means it is the basis for perfecting any positive mental quality.
The
minds of ourselves, the minds of others, in this fundamental nature are like a perfectly clean mirror that can reflect and cognize any object, no matter how coarse or subtle. So if we are able to tap into this mind, So if we are able to activate the mind in this way, what we will slowly start to see is that there is absolutely no difference in myself and others, in any of the 6 types of sentient beings within samsara. Every single one of us wishes not to suffer. Every single one of us wishes for stable happiness. In this way, we are fundamentally all the same. So meditate on that mind of equanimity.
Romosena Machi, Runkinesena Nuchi, Ta yes and Taibaji is a Telta Inata. I yet so at Kachimur.
So I am just one person. The people close to me are just a handful in number, whereas other sentient beings are countless, limitless. Therefore, I must consider their welfare.
Runchinsena Kangi Jayama. Ye Jinsenata, Deshi, Nikaga Deshi, Tatuga Deshi, Kangi, Jayamba, Machirem, Lamachirem was. Sunjido Sunjisema Yuzu, eyes, Tendere, Sumato.
The self-cherishing mind is the cause of so much narrow-mindedness and what troubles me, whereas the mind that cherishes others is the source of closeness and happiness of all beings. This is not just the instruction of one Lama or one enlightened being. All of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas teach this.
The Ye Yuzula Tapu Deshi, Nikaga Deshi, Tatuga Deshi, Dimbosuna, so much as Shombayo.
So understanding that and feeling that connectedness, think how wonderful it would be if all of those sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. Meditate on love.
The Soma no Yideagata, Legenda was so thing Maro Rungeta, the Tobazo, Sopata, Tasso.
So then think, helping beings find happiness and achieve all the causes of that happiness. This is something that I am responsible for. I myself alone will help them find that happiness. Bring forth that superior intention.
Soma no Jitat, the Dikata, Tepus Jabala, Tandanga Rosulio de Agna, Nasedeade. Sujima Chapat, Joto Meagata, Sujito Bashavi, Sumbitoni Shunjis.
So understanding that myself, right, in my current state right now, I can't really do this for sentient beings effectively. Therefore think, may that I call the I, the self, and my mind, may I actualize Buddhahood so that I can go beyond my limitations and benefit all sentient beings. Meditate on bodhicitta.
Soma no Yachita, so I teach it so much.
And in order to be able to actualize this exactly in the way that I wish, I will make single-pointed requests for blessings. So what we're going to do is, just for folks who are new to this series, we'll go through the praise of the Buddha relatively quickly. Then we'll do the praise to the perfection of wisdom in Tibetan. And then we'll recite the Heart Sutra together in English. And then we'll do the lion face dakini in Tibetan before we do the refuge in bodhicitta. So that's how it's going to go. Yeah. Tumba chomden de deshin sheba dra chomba yang daba zobe sanje sheba dang shaosu denpa dewa sheba jiten chenpa chebu dewe kalo jurwa lana meba lada minangi denpa sanje chomden de pe jawa shakya dupa la chaosu lo chede kyaosu ji Tumba chomden de deje jeba dra chomba yonda ba zobe sanje jeba dang shazu denba dewa sheba shiten chemba chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana meba ladam minangi denba sanje chomden de be chawa shakya tuba la chansa lo cheda jazu ji Tumba chomden de deje jeba dra chomba yonda ba zobe sangye jeba dang shaosu denpa dewa sheba shiten chemba chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana meba lada minangi denpa sangye chomden de pejawa shakya duba la chanse lo chede kyabzu ji The praise to the perfection of wisdom. Mazanje me shira paro she ma che minga namge ngobo ni sozo ranri yeshi che yawa tisu jawe yomla chonsa. I prostrate to the three noble, rare, sublime ones. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Massive Vulture's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Sharadvatiputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no eye element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata gate gate, para samgate, bodhi swaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharad Vatiputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So do the lion face stacking. Kala jebe nejo damba ne genje zhe ngawe to dojen joba bola maye buje je neson kanjo zela chazelo akasa samaranda yadara samaraya be akasa.
Samaranda Shadara Samaraya Pe
Tayata gate gate para samgate bodhi soha Baba kunjo sungi dembi tochi toba jochi mepa jochi shiwa jochi drage baji midumbe chongyamba thamshe shanti kuru ye so gere dondra gyaju jewa da midune be kendon jewa da tumba deji bunzun zojo be daji de gyan dende dende. So we'll do a short mandala offering and then the refuge and bodhicitta. So je beje je me do jo re ra li je ni de gyam ba de sangye shin de me de bo wa ye to ko no da shi la je ba shu yi dang ko ra na mandala ko no ya da ya Sonje Jedon Zojo Jonan La Janchu Bada Dani Jazojo Dagi Chinyin Gibe Zonanje Jola Benche Sange Joba Jo Sonje Jedon Sogi Chinam La Janchu Bada Dani Jazojo Dagi Chinyin Gibe Zonanje Jola Benche Sange Joba Jo Chedan sogi chenam la chanchu badu dani kyaksu chi dagi chenyen jibe sunam gi dola beje sonje joba shu. Yes, yeah. So Geshe said that no need to do maybe a motivation meditation because we already established the motivation earlier. But just to kind of establish that state of peace so that we can pay attention, Geshe is encouraging you just for a moment to direct your attention to the rising and falling of the breath. Breathing in, be aware you're breathing in. Breathing out, be aware you're breathing out. And try to count to 21 inhalations and exhalations.
Lutsuma, Dela Tempest, Setio, Tatsuma,
Think from purifying my breath and the winds in this way, the mind is also purified and focused.
Da no se Koroja, Yapochire, Inayota, Nikachil, Jimba Noja, Lower Yituma, Mombo, Chigananzu Pachish.
So we know that the mind's fundamental nature is pure and luminous. But we also know that just like clouds sometimes obscure the blue sky, the mind is kind of covered in the dust of unwholesome thoughts.
Lower Tumanimuin, Dipile in the Korosole, Tejiare, Etejite, Naroso, Nyambote and Tashu, children on the Tatsumachai or so much.
So this dust that covers the nature of the mind like the clouds, the sky is the adventitious defilements such as the afflictions, as well as the negative karma. But the afflictions and negative karma both have one positive quality, and that positive quality is that if we identify and purify them, they can be completely cleared away.
Chamayozu ta no Timba Meba Noji, Chasona, ta Semseat, Naseat, Sujiseat, Chabare, Chayare, Suman.
If we're able to completely clear away the afflictions and their imprints, then just like a cloudless sky whose brilliance is revealed, then that we call the mind, its pure nature as well as the self, can be fully perfected, can reach the state of enlightenment.
The lesson of Sosoga, Yellow Pemba Devamato, Sosoga, Gangi, Chaso Tumaza Sai, Gaving on the happiness.
And let's be clear that that state of enlightenment not only is your own welfare perfectly achieved, but you are also able to meaningfully contribute to the welfare of others. So understanding the worthiness of this goal, we should cultivate towards it with joy.
What I did to be canning in a chinaki, what you chose on it,
So thinking about all of the causes that we are accumulating, they're all for happiness. So that means we proceed in our cultivation of the Dharma happily, hopefully.
Cho maybe say Kanga, I just want to dark when you ask, you are Jingo to the Nick, Karachana Macha, Cho maybe say Kanga, Nikachila, Kolaka Mevazasa.
And how can we know? How can we know that this really works? It'll make us more happy. Well, just think about it. When you place your mind with attention on a wholesome object, on an object that brings happiness, you have that experience that a lot of what was disturbing or upsetting you just fades into the background, isn't it?
What in Divachi, what that and this Somanoji, Dando Shapalata, Kumba,
and to reach this goal of enlightenment for the sake of oneself and others, we need to walk using our two legs of the practices of method and wisdom.
The
glorious Chandrakirti, in his writings, he compares it to the two wings of the bird who flies across the confusing ocean of samsara and reaches the shore of liberation. Mm-hmm. So this is in the text called Madhyamakavatara, entering the middle way. Yeah, so it's a beautiful white bird. So I didn't get the entire verse. I haven't learned it, but it's a beautiful white bird whose wings carried across the ocean. Shangumba. It's Nganso Tonga di Burlington Tonga di yeah, so it's a peaceful kind of bird. So I was going to say a seagull, but maybe a seagull's not the right one. It's a peaceful kind of bird that's able to kind of glide using those two wings very gently to that shore of liberation. Yeah, so swan is a much better guess, actually. Yeah, so Geshe said these two wings of the bird, these are what carry us across the ocean. So without the practices of method and wisdom, right, there's no way to reach our goals.
La chembochi jasa res.
La chembo ale.
Aje.
La chembochi.
Oh, la chembochi ngol dosa res.
Ale. Los.
Chembochi jasa res.
Rigila di.
Oh, temato.
Los. So Geshe said that yesterday we kind of navigated a quite complex mountain pass successfully. And so this was, some teachings on Vajrayogini. But of course, those teachings on Vajrayogini can't be realized in the absence of method and wisdom, right? So the teachings that we're doing today are really important. So the practices of visualization and so forth common to Tantra, if they are not informed by the practices of method and wisdom, they are no different from the practices of visualization that you would find in the traditions of Sanatana Dharma, so in the other Indian spiritual traditions, right? They would be just the same from the side of like kind of the method. Yeah. So the previous Kyabje Trijang Rinpoche stated very clearly that if method and wisdom are not kind of the foundation of your tantric practice, the practices of the generation stage are something that all of these other Indian spiritual traditions also have, right? So in that way, there wouldn't be anything particular about the Buddhist practice of the generation stage. So, manipulating the winds or the prana, we see that in a lot of dharmic traditions, right? A lot of Indian spiritual traditions, visualizing various deities, gods, and goddesses. We see that in a lot of those spiritual traditions as well. And also when we look at the Buddha's spiritual journey, right? To common appearances, we know that he actually exclusively practiced sutra, the sutra practices of method and wisdom, all the way from the beginning of his spiritual journey until he reached the 10th ground or the 10th bhumi of a bodhisattva. Yeah. So on the eve of his enlightenment, he reached that 10th ground. He received abhisheka or empowerment. And then by that morning, he was able to be fully enlightened due to his previous cultivation, right? So it happened very quickly, but it was still there. It was still required. So in our practices of method and wisdom are really firm, then we will really be able to maintain that mental happiness all the time. So we're going to turn to the Junjuk, to the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra. So we are now in chapter 2, which is the confession of negativities. If I'm not mistaken, we finished at verse 29 last time. So on the Bachelor translation that I'm using, you'll find this on page 6. But regardless, it's chapter 2, verse 29. So we can see this as an exploration right? When we look at these texts, thinking about the different qualities we want to develop, thinking about the various faults that we want to reduce, we should see this as kind of like an experiment, right? Something enjoyable.
장가를 못 치수근도 와서 어쩌지 대당하러 스탄다네 세계 제모데 부에 제 시원하고 지속을 하래.
So His Holiness the Dalai Lama advises to see it as like a game between these two opposing teams within the mind, that of the qualities and the faults. Right?
콘트로도 다다 니모그리 되지 내가 가르래도 숑바도 니지도 다 돈이도 시라 되지 내가 간디스래도
So what's kind of the team of ignorance grasping at the self, anger, and so forth? What is its plan of play? And how can we counteract that with the other team, right? Of the wisdom realizing emptiness, love, and compassion, and so forth.
단도도 왔어. 당길랑 가서 고잡이 갈리시더니 일하면 고잡으러 왔어. 다리 디파도 니모를 예대지야레스. 디필레이나 거 좀아서야지. 니모이나 거 센로야. 다 땡간서
So Geshe is just reminding you from our preliminary meditation. He said it was sort of a meditation. It was a bit, it was sort of meditation maybe. One of the important things that we said is there are positive qualities to both the afflictions and to negative karma. Remember this point because it's very important. So what is that? It's that if we cultivate the antidotes, the afflictions can be reduced and the karma, the negative karma, can be purified.
Oh yeah, dagi can just sort on Tirawa.
Timuk Dagi Kunchusum Ale. So Geshe thinks we're at verse 30. So yes, that's right. We finished 29 and we're at verse 30. Oh, really?
Tangaros dipile sasatelayon. On a $10 Shuyana manner. Shawangama the Shawala to me. Oh, each of us can just the Sunji the Masolat Department of Sayona. Would you go to
So verse 30 is really warning us, right? And we might have a reaction when we hear this. Well, I didn't do that. But of course, we're not just thinking from the perspective of this lifetime, right? We're thinking of our countless lifetimes within samsara. And during those lifetimes, we may have gotten angry at the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We may have gotten upset with the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and accumulated that negative karma. And of course, when we do that, because of the power of the object, it's a very grave fault.
Oh, Nina toss you are Tangana and Zolonso just a tato marwas, no machipa, color, chipa, kaki was a day over in no machipa inayo, Richie Pachunga, Richie, Kadina, Tembodeto, Kibodeto.
So Geshe said that, we can understand that there are previous negativities that we have accumulated that are having an effect, even though those are things that we cannot remember. So think about, for example, a family. You can have a family where some members of that family are very happy, content, peaceful people, and other people within the same family with the same conditions are upset, easily aggravated, and unhappy. Yes, I did. I said, Geshe said, did you say same family? I think I did, yes. So in the same family, right? So what can we kind of suppose or guess from that? Why would that be the case? Well, there must be some sort of unseen cause that is making some people within that family unhappy and miserable, even though most of them are happy and living in a good condition, right?
Well, Lende said that the Hale
So that is cause and effect, and it is something that is very profound. It is something that shapes even the smallest aspect of our experience, according to Lord Atisha.
So at this
point in the text, what we're doing is we are first confessing negativities related to exceptional objects, right? So that means the holy objects, such as the three jewels. I said to Geshe, we didn't read the verse yet. He said, yeah, because I was blathering on. So apologies. Verse 30.
Buddha ke kecho sado na pama gom lama jenda la nyamo gone linga to yiji neji kola ba.
Whatever harmful acts of body, speech, and mind I have done in a disturbed mental state towards the three jewels of refuge, my parents, my spiritual masters, and others.
This one, oh, that kecho sado sunji to sunji semba sodo. Ane pama do. Ane oda tendegri de da yechewache jogares.
So these are, Geshe is saying, we're mentioning the three jewels here. We're also mentioning one's parents and so forth, because these are powerful objects. So the negativities that we accumulate in relation to those people and those objects are going to be heavier. The negativity is enhanced.
Pena sunji choden de koro inayo porque ta senje nikala. Ane nyamachi la ta koro pami kalmanya ni la. Pami komando sene jaso no novela.
Le loso.
Jaso no tari what is in novela.
The junction sembe pick up. Sange semjini pick up roa. Tene koron pala amala konso nobu lenga droswa. Konangla degi.
Ngama papa novela kirendo papa tosaswa.
Le loso.
Amite mandros.
Yes. So this is a story from one of the previous lifetimes of the Buddha before he was enlightened. And in this story, the Buddha was a child of two merchants. And his father previously had gone to an island, to a faraway place, to be able to collect some precious jewels or metals. And he died on that journey. But the family fell into poverty. And so then the mother, she wanted to undertake a similar journey. And her child said to her, don't go. It's dangerous. This is the way that my father died. And so at that time too, it was said that this family, they were quite successful merchants. And one of the problems was that whenever they did business, because they were successful, other people got really jealous and tried to cause them a lot of problems. So at the time, the being who became the Buddha, he wasn't the Buddha yet, when he was kind of helping his mother, even relatively small things that he would do would help them accumulate a significant profit. And so because of this jealousy of the other people, they actually used caste as a way of trying to push the being who became the Buddha, his family, out. They said, you are supposed to be the jewel finders and the miners. You are not of the merchant caste, which is allowed to do this kind of business. And so then, this is how it came about, that the mother thought, if we want to continue supporting my family, then this is not kind of our station in life to do business. So I have to go and try to retrieve some of those jewels. Yeah, but the mother, knowing that her child did not want her to go, she left for the journey at nighttime under the cover of darkness. The first time she tried to leave, though, the child was very smart and he was sleeping in front of the door. So she wasn't able to make it out the first day that she wanted to go. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, Gonda. Ama kunchukten so lenga drogiru sange kunchuk lenga drogiru. So ama drogiru la so tam de tam. Sorry. So I'm very sorry. I was totally confused. So it's the Buddha who's going to go and get the jewels. The mother was trying to stop him. Sorry, it was the Buddha. So he says, I'm the son of my father. I want to go get the jewels. The mother said, no, this is how your father died. He said, we have no choice. This is our station in life. So she blocked him from the door by sleeping there the first time. The second night, he decided that he was going to try to step over her to be able to reach that island of jewels.
다 아마 거기서는 손지과 되어와 손지 말와 디디소리. 가고 서와. 아 이나요 코 송화진이 갈래진 아멘 고선을 비 구바자는 파타.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So a couple of nights this went on, and then one night when she was sleeping very deeply, he was able to kind of very gently walk over her head and leave the door to go on the journey.
다 땡기시에 개야된 간주 드린 저와요. 레스. 저와 간지스 요아레서나. 손지 찬이라 요냐마 찔은 것 나이가 다 넘바.
So why are we telling this story related to this part of the text, Geshe said? You might be wondering. The Buddha told this story when he was experiencing a headache, and his followers were asking, why is it that the Blessed One would experience a headache? And in fact, the Buddha's disciples called on many different doctors. They tried different medicines, but nothing really seemed to work to be able to clear away that headache. And so, the disciples got really discouraged, and they said to the Buddha, how is it that, we're finding you the best doctors and the best medicines, but nothing that we're doing is working? And so the Buddha related this story. And so because of the disrespect and also the deception of stepping over his mother's head to be able to leave the house to go on that journey, the residual effect of that karma was to experience a headache in that lifetime. So it's really important to understand then the power of the object, right? Because our parents take care of us in the vast majority of cases and so forth, they are a powerful object. So when we engage in deception or disrespect, right, the negative karma that we accumulate in relation to that can be quite heavy. So why is it then that the three jewels are a heavy object for the accumulation of karma? It's because of their nature. So the three jewels abide solely in order to bring about benefit for sentient beings. Because of the importance of that work, of solely working for the benefit of sentient beings, if we engage in disrespect towards them, this is a heavy, unwholesome karma. But similarly, if we offer respect, this is a very powerful, positive karma. Yeah. It's also because of the profoundly positive qualities that, for example, the Buddhas possess. The Buddhas have an unbearable love and compassion for sentient beings, right? The empathy that they feel towards sentient beings, if we were to measure it as 100%, we would not even have 0.01% of the strength of that empathy and regard for sentient beings. So that's another reason why they're a powerful object. And so, of course, the making of offerings and so forth are beautiful practices to tap into the power of the object of the three jewels, for example, and accumulate that positive karma. However, offerings are not the main practice. the thing that pleases the Buddhas most is our efforts to benefit others. So benefiting even one sentient being in a small way is infinitely even more pleasing than the making of offerings. Similarly, when we harm beings, even small insects and so forth, this is something that puts us at more of a distance from the Buddhas. So therefore, in this verse number 30, we see that it is the exceptional objects that are mentioned. Exceptional objects mean that due to the power of the objects, the negativities that we accumulate in relation to them are greatly magnified, but also the positive karma we accumulate connected with them is greatly magnified. Yeah. And so let's connect this then with our practice of purification. So everybody knows the practice of purification is connected with the 4 powers, right? And so what is the first of these 4 powers of purification? It is the power of the basis. And the power of the basis means the basis on which we accumulated the negativity. And there's only actually 2 categories within the power of the basis: Buddhas and sentient beings. Sangye denso kyamdro, semchen denso semche. And what are the antidotes to the 2 negativities accumulated in relation to those? For the Buddhas, it is the practice of refuge that purifies those negativities. For sentient beings, it is the practice of arising bodhicitta that purifies that negativity. So the classic example is we need an antidote that is similar to the negative cause. If we fall down on the ground, we need to push ourselves up using the ground, right? So purification of negativities, we wouldn't say that it is the main spiritual practice, but it is a very important auxiliary practice. So you might ask then, what is the main task, right? Well, one perspective is the main task is developing wisdom that allows us to see things as they really are, because that's what's really going to solve the problems. So why is this? Because if we tried to purify every single negative karma, of course that practice of purification is something powerful and useful. But if that is all we did, there would never be an end to it, because the births in which we've accumulated the negativity are endless, right? Oh, right. The realization of emptiness is the panacea. It is like the magical medicine that can cure every single disease in one moment. So emptiness completely cuts off any source of nourishment like the water or the fertilizer for the seeds of negativity within us. Therefore, it renders those seeds of negativity incapable of bringing forth an unfortunate result. So as we come to the next part, we're on page 7 for me, verse 31 in the 2nd chapter. This is thinking about the undesired results of negativities we've accumulated. That's the theme. Jebu. Yeah. Verse 31, and all the grave wrongs done by me, so thoroughly evil and polluted, but an abundance of faults I openly declare to the guides of the world.
다 디필레 mombo 사피가 고소anga 세계선하스와 소소.
방상아.
뭐서 아차라와.
Yeah.
하고서와 어느 다 대소안에 대대와인 딘디부텔 이마치는 너무 토바 제마토반다고 강에 조야메 바시레.
So this is a confession thinking about if I don't confess those wrongs, right? This will lead to an unfortunate result because the wrongs that I have accumulated are many, many in number. There's an abundance of them.
Disumwa 다 맞은 델 디바샤 마토나
Disumshonirwa. Sumshonirogimbe.
야야. 로와.
Yeah, losh.
도모로쇼.
Yeah, dani.
도안에 디바 마숑와 녜든 거와 저듯이 제탄들링 했다와 뉴스지 샤드소.
So verse number 32, but I may well perish before all my evils have been purified. So please protect me in such a way as will swiftly and surely free me from them.
당으로서 멋진 델타 소소 따다 요비가를 보게 디바쇼 마토바이나 디바 요비 돈에 다 샤와샤만 도비슈나 따더니 강에 오줘야매 바치 강에 침모레 이제 바시 가레스.
So this is a warning that if we are not able to do something to purify the negativities that we have accumulated in this life before we pass away, right? Then the force of that negative karma could project us into an unfortunate state of existence.
Decent. Oh, is that the good either? Ite Maru Chadon, the Shito Mashi Madebin, Nato Mana Kanji, Lovacella, Ite me.
Verse 33, the untrustworthy Lord of Death waits not for things to be done or undone. Whether I am sick or healthy, this fleeting lifespan is unstable.
다 단다데 데타지 갈래 디파쇼 추그레 소노토네 데바이나 어느 처음부터 바티가 따다 그루치가 말다스.
So this is addressing a misconception because we're thinking like, okay, like I'm healthy, I take care of myself, so I'm going to be here for a while, so I'll have time to confess later. But we know that even healthy people can go into the next life, right? The timing of death and impermanence is something uncertain. So we can't count on having that opportunity. Modachik yaria.
Mutalani.
Yeah.
Lani do yani do.
Yeah.
Do kala mutat dewa te halevin jubotu yares. Jubotu kala mati khosheni la.
Yeah.
Ete mutat kalezia. Tanangal leka mawala yo das.
Dipa jangore tanda.
Dipa shukama leka mawala yo.
So Geshe was thinking of one of his friends who was in Dharam. Sorry. Not a friend, let's call it an acquaintance then. An acquaintance of Geshe who was in a taxi in Dharamsala that was driving really fast. And he actually started to worry. And he said to the taxi driver, please slow down, drive carefully. There's a lot of things I still need to take care of in this life. Yeah, so it's kind of funny, right? But also true. Yidin. Oh, right. Tamche. Verse 34, leaving all I must depart alone, but through not having understood this, I committed various kind of evil for the sake of my friends and foes. So think about it, right? When you go to the next life, you even have to leave behind this body, which you think is so precious and you take care of. And that means not to mention all of friends and family members, the people, as well as all of your worldly possessions, of course. So then the question becomes, well, what travels with me? What travels with me to the next lifetime? And the answer to that is your wholesome and unwholesome karma. Right. And so we are the ones who are going to have to experience the results of the negative karma that we have accumulated, even when our actions of negativity were done seemingly to address some sort of situation with our enemies or to address some sort of situation with our friends. Because we were the one who did the action, we bear its consequence.
So it's
not like you're like, okay, yes, I did that negativity, but I was doing it to help my family, so therefore I don't bear the consequence of an unwholesome karma, right? It's not how it works. So verse number 35, my foes will become nothing, my friends will become nothing, I too will become nothing, likewise all will become nothing. And it mi gyurwasana mepachai di tonda kareti. Okay. Sorry, a bad question, but maybe it's another one that some of you had. So Geshe is saying that, when we say my foes will become nothing, my friends will become nothing, I too will become nothing, likewise all will become nothing. What it's saying is, it doesn't make sense to accumulate negativity on behalf of the friends, the foes, or oneself, because we're all going to die anyway, right? There's no advantage that's going to be secured from that.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Verse number 36. Just like a dream experience, whatever things I enjoy will become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again. Right. So, in this life, there's a lot of kind of wonders or beautiful things within samsara. But if we're willing to kind of accumulate negativity in order to secure those things, that doesn't make sense, because we know that those pleasant things within samsara that we enjoy, they're just like bubbles on the surface of a water that pop at any moment. They are just like a dream. When we wake up from it, we can no longer hold on to it.
So
along the same lines of logic, verse number 37, even within this brief life, many friends and foes have passed, but whatever unbearable evil I committed for them remains ahead of me.
So
So Geshe is saying, verse number 37, this is pointing at the certainty of karma, right? So although our friends and enemies may have passed away, whatever actions we did in relation to them, right, the result of that is still going to be experienced, even if we haven't experienced it now. So it lies ahead of us. So we should really kind of, when we look at the difficulties in this world, at the sufferings in this world, understand that these are the results of negative karma. And this should give us a sense of urgency and also a sense of regret about our negative actions.
This one.
Okay, yep.
Shulok chilo는
Ninsen depa yome par.
Arma chilo sorry.
Deta danilo borwa. So verse number 38, thereby not having realized that I shall suddenly vanish, I committed so much evil out of ignorance, lust, and hate.
Ota chowa kadi yume ta tembo mea isa dipashi batertani jevashi vares. Chowa kadile male ko tembo yo marawas. Ndi isa ta dipasana ta piya yapomandu sama jevashi.
So we also understand for the reason that we don't know when death is going to come. Because of that, the accumulation of any negativity is inadvisable.
This one, ota decho to shedo to tembo ota keja most tindu.
Tishagimbe.
Mara mazno just karja. This one.
Yep.
Netse deba yume ba chenda ta de kenji never kone yume na data chowa ji manjo.
Verse number 39, remaining neither day nor night, life is always slipping by and never getting any longer. Why will death not come to one like me?
Yeah. So
Geshe said that he's sorry, but there's a lot of reminders of death and impermanence. So it's not the easiest part of the text here, but it's really important for us to hear, right? So one of the things that the text is trying to convey, right, is that the causes of us remaining in the world are fewer compared to the possible causes that can contribute to our death. So we could be gone at any moment.
Yeah.
So think about, for example, food, which all of us eat to sustain us within the world. How often does it happen that people pass away from food poisoning, or that the food causes some kind of serious injury to the body? So, you've already kind of had many days within this life, right? The lifespan, it's not going to be so easy to extend it. So what you need to understand is, as each day of your life goes by, you need to be engaging in something which is going to give you a sense of peace when the time of death comes.
And
we have the opportunity to do all of that, don't we? Here we just talked about the ways in which we can purify the negativities. We also know that we have a lot of strategies for really kind of reducing and diminishing the afflictions.
So
that sense of determination is really important. Geshe said, remember that story that he always tells you about the man who spoke with his afflictions and said, the stronger you come, the more I'm going to oppose you. But if you relax and leave me alone, then I can draw back a bit. And if we have an awareness, right, a mindfulness, this is very important, of when we accumulate the unwholesomeness, then we will be able to then confess it.
So
the other side of this is also to understand that the unwholesome karma that we accumulate, right, is compelled by what? By the afflictions. So if we cultivate the positive mental qualities like love and compassion, which are the antidote to the afflictions, this is something that is also very important.
So
then, because love, compassion, and bodhicitta, the method side, are greatly enhanced by the wisdom realizing emptiness, we will now turn our attention to the wisdom text part of the teaching. So, of course, as we approach emptiness, we need some determination because we realize that this isn't easy. It reminds Geshe of a passage from a text by Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen, which is called The Debate Between the Ignorance Grasping at the Self and the Wisdom Realizing Emptiness. This is available online for free on Happy Monk's publication if you want to download that. So in this text, Ignorance Grasping at the Self says, all of the countless beings within samsara are my servants, and you, wisdom realize emptiness, who do you have following you, right? So it's not so easy a decision to make to try to follow wisdom. 지랑기 민코마송. Yeah. And ignorance grasping at the self says to the wisdom realizing emptiness, even in a generous estimate, 90% of sentient beings don't listen to you at all. And out of the 10% who do listen, they're just listening to create an impression in others. They're not really listening sincerely. So some people, they might sort of say, okay, I'm going to cultivate you wisdom for a few months, but eventually they get bored and they come back to me. So even the people who you think are your followers are not really your followers. So Geshe really likes this text because it's, it anthropomorphizes these two minds, the ignorance grasping at the self and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And like through this conversation that they have with each other, we can understand a lot of things. Danzin. Yeah. So, Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen, this debate between self-grasping ignorance and wisdom, kind of personifying them in a conversation. This is a completely unique text. Geshe has not kind of seen any other text that is similar to this. So it's a really useful one, actually. So the ignorance grasping at the self even makes an argument for why it's benefiting the person. He said, when this person was hungry or when they were cold, I compelled them to get the resources necessary to get food and clothing. Wisdom realizing emptiness, when have you ever done something like that? So Geshe had a lot of actually clever arguments from that ignorance grasping at the self. So Dekili, if you put Happy Monk's publication, Fedor Strack. So Fedor Strack is a student of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He teaches in Munich. If you put Happy Monk's publication, Fedor Strack, this will bring up the website and you will be able to find that text. It's a free PDF for download. So let us now turn our conversation to the Heart Sutra. So if we are studying and practicing the teachings on wisdom, we want to be able to give ignorance grasping at a self an answer to its attempts to deceive us, right? Yeah, so and whether we're able to give it a really good answer that defeats it in the argument or not, this depends upon our own effort and our own endeavor, right? So just to kind of conceptualize this Heart Sutra, we can think about it in terms of three outlines. And so why does Geshe emphasize the outline so much? It's to help you remember the contents of the text. And that's easy when you think about it in a very kind of distilled way. So we could say that the sutra, in the easiest way to divide it, is divided into the introduction, the actual sutra, and the conclusion. And so in the introduction, it includes all of the things like the preamble, which is, kind of giving the setting, like the oath to compose, the expression of worship, and so forth. That's all contained in that first part, the beginning, the introduction. So the actual body of the sutra has two subheadings, the question and the answer. And so we've covered the question completely. And what we're doing now in these later sessions is talking about the answers to the question. And so remember also that the answer is given in two types. The answer for the sharp faculty bodhisattva and the answer for the limited faculty bodhisattva. So we are coming to the end of the answer intended for the limited faculty bodhisattva. So you may ask, how do we kind of define the bodhisattva as either limited faculties or sharp faculties? I think I have to say the word dull because of, I like to say limited because it feels more politically correct, but here I think I have to say dull. So how do we divide the bodhisattva to the dull and sharp faculties? So the dull faculties are the ones who practice the teachings of love, compassion, and bodhicitta first before really approaching emptiness. Whereas the sharp faculty bodhisattva, he or she begins with cultivating the wisdom, realizing emptiness right from the beginning. Deva. Oh, yeah. Deva. Durbodhi, right? Yeah. Doba sagere, right? Yeah. Deva yongi omares. Yeah. Kodopasa. Yeah. But Geshe thinks that another way to actually divide into the sharp and dull faculty bodhisattvas might make more sense. He thinks that those who go based on feelings and faith as their approach to the teachings, this would be the limited faculty bodhisattva. And those who right from the beginning have doubts, want to question the reasoning of things, really want things to be proven before they develop faith, that would be the sharp faculty bodhisattva. Both of them have faith, right? It's just the sharp faculty bodhisattva comes to that faith after the investigation. So we have the faith of the sharp faculty bodhisattva and the faith of the dull faculty bodhisattva. So what would be an example of the limited faculty bodhisattva's approach to faith? Just saying the Buddha is precious. The Buddha is a holy being. Because he's so precious and holy, he stated that there's liberation and enlightenment. So there must be liberation and enlightenment. So I'll try to reach those because the Buddha is really holy and he wouldn't deceive me. That would be the first type. The sharp faculty bodhisattva, he or she is going to think for a moment. Look, like, okay, Buddha Shakyamuni is precious. He's a holy being. But that doesn't mean that I just accept everything he says without checking. So if he's saying that there is a way to be able to defeat the ignorance grasping at the self, is that something that can really be proven? How do I know that that's the case?
오양 고추슈.
So now we will turn to the Heart Sutra.
샤리베테 따이나 tum바니라 zume 소하면 되시면 되는 넘바 시바메.
Yes, so Dejin du Tsorba dan Dushe dan Nampa Sheba Nanton Pao Diribe. Ale, Mache pa Ngaba pa Tirame pa.
샤리베테 따이나 tum바니라 zume.
Zume, Tsorwa me, Dushe me, Duje me, Nampa Sheba me, Mime Nawa me. So I'm going to read the part of the sutra where we are. So in the prayers for teaching occasions, it's on page 11. And remember, we are on the path of meditation approach to emptiness. So I'll read the verse. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. So those are the 5 aggregates. And then we have no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. So these are the 12 sources. And the 12 sources are divided into 2 sets of 6, the 6 inner sources and the 6 outer sources. Right. So we may have noticed that before in the 5 aggregates, we talked about a form. And here we're also talking Zukawadu, Zumeroa. Yeah. It also says no form. So So the English translator is very clever. They put no visual form. So that's the meaning, but that's not actually what the Tibetan says. So Geshe is saying the form within the 5 aggregates and the form that we see here within the 12 sources, we have to understand the meaning of form differently. So the form within these 5 aggregates or skandhas, we can think of that as any kind of form, the form of any object. And the one here says no form, but it is no form in terms of the form that can be seen by the eyes. So that's why the translator here gave it as no visual form. I think that's a good decision. It makes it clear. There is no eye element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. So in this way, we have covered the 18 constituents or the 18 dhatus. Yul, yeah. 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 So how do we think about these 18 dhatus or constituents? So we can think of them in 3 sets of 6. So the first set is related to the object, right? The sight or the sound or the taste and so forth. The second is related to the sense power, the eye sense power, nose sense power, tongue power. And the third is the sense consciousness that arises due to contact with that sense power. So nose consciousness, eye consciousness, mental consciousness. He doesn't want me to give examples of each one. Sorry. Okay. Maripa me, maripa zepa me, gashi me, gashi. So we continue in the sutra. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Right. So within these verses, there are 4 presentations. Yeah. So the first is the 12 links of dependent arising from the perspective of the completely afflicted class. And this is divided into 2, the forward order and the reverse order.
그래 녀모쇼제 땡데 륜주
Yeah.
노조쇼제 땡데 륜주니데 시월라야 연다니도 잘로요
Ale, ni din so tambo kune nyomon parwa ine jipa sumpadang jipa konso
선바도 저바로 말다
ale
그래 녀모쇼 땡데 륜주
linju. Yeah.
노조쇼게 땡데 륜주니데 시월요
Yeah. So we have to we can divide the categories of these four into two ways. So we can think of the completely afflicted class, the forward and reverse order, and the completely purified class, the forward and reverse order. Geshe is now presenting this from a different perspective. We have the completely afflicted forward order, and the completely purified forward order, and the completely afflicted reverse order, and completely purified reverse order.
노랭이네서 케이나 땡데 륜주 르돌 고모고 자비하레스
And then so doginangla lunju mato yomarero. Yeah. And so within the sutra, it's only the forward order, and we can think of it of the perspective of the purified or the afflicted class, but it is only the forward order that is presented. We don't see the reverse order mentioned specifically. But for one who is meditating on the 12 links of dependent arising, the forward and reverse order are very important. Sasana? So one of the reasons that we want to meditate on the 12 links in the forward order and then the reverse order, part of this is like a mental training, which lets us develop our samadhi or concentration. Just like, when you're training in the gym, you want to do some exercise forward and some backwards. In the same way, we want to train our concentration in this way. So to have a knowledge of the forward and reverse order so that our mind can go through them in either direction, and so that we can be familiar and set our mind to focus on any one of these individually. Yeah. Yes. Oh, right. Right. So Lama Tsongkhapa mentions that if our samadhi is firm, then we'll have two benefits. One of those is that the things that we have learned, we will be able to remember them firmly like the mountain. The other one is that when our mind is not focused one thing but facing outwards, we will be able to guide it in the direction of virtue. Yes. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. So what this is saying is that there are no four Arya or noble truths, but of course what we're saying is there are no inherently existent four Arya or noble truths. And so actually this particular part of the sutra is where a significant doubt could possibly arise. Yeah. So it's really important when we talk, when we look in this sutra, right? It's saying no. So what does that no or that absence indicate? When we are talking about it from the perspective of Gomlam Rua, the path of meditation, kunzok peche tamshe pape nyamshak yeshegi chuni sikmor mepa de dundam dempa yi roa dirwa. Right. What they are saying is that those phenomena are not within the sight of the wisdom of the Arya, who is in meditative equipoise upon ultimate truth or emptiness. So those conventional phenomena do not exist in the perception of the wisdom of an Arya's meditative equipoise. I've said it two ways there just to make it easier to understand. Right. Right. So then we come to a bit of a problem here, right? Because when we say there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path, yeah, if we assert that there is no cessation, then there is no path of meditation. Gokpa dang gomlam jawa karidu di cheshja gore ma tokonso hako.
Gokpa sen gudya se yarawas.
Gokten, yeah, hagosong.
Gudya se tuni res hanjawa lula.
Yeah.
Tuni ina chini ta zingol yo churwas.
And so cessation here, right? This means emptiness, right? And so if we are saying there is no emptiness, how could we speak about the person on the path of meditation being in that equipoise on emptiness and not able to see those conventional or relative phenomena? So this is kind of one of the biggest doubts about what is the Heart Sutra actually trying to say here, yeah? So the Madhyamika Sautantrikas, they don't have this problem because they do not assert that true cessations, Gokden Tompa Mares, they don't say that true cessations are emptiness, right? They say that true cessations are actually relative truths. So a Sautantrika is going to have no problem with this part of the sutra. So Geshe said this he thinks is an interesting place to leave it, something for you to think about. So let us leave the discussion of the Heart Sutra here. Yeah. So up to this point in the sutra too, we have gone through we have gone through all of the objects of meditation. Now the emphasis in the sutra is going to turn to the object possessor or to the subject. So that's another reason why it's a good place actually to leave the discussion. Yeah. So we'll also come to a discussion when we reach the end of the path of meditation, which is a 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva. How do things unfold from there? So just to kind of sum, when we say there is no of all of these different things, really ultimately you understand they're saying no inherently existent such and such. That's important. Because there is nothing inherently existent, right? Then our afflicted mind, under the power of ignorance, the way that it sees things, the way that things appear, are not the way things really are. So that is the wisdom that we must uncover. Okay. No, guys, just saying I was complaining. No, it's just sometimes we need the things slowly, especially I think this point about the path of meditation and why this can raise doubts in the sutra, right? This is really important. But Geshe was saying that we are going to go back to this, right? We are going to revisit it. So let us then dedicate the merits. Janju semcho rinpoche maje panam chejo chi shewa nyamba meba yon gone kondu pewa risho
tongi tawa rinpoche maje pana jeje jewa nyamba meba yang gone gonda bewa sho jamba baye jeta jemba dang kundu zangbo deyang deje de deda kunje jesu dalo che gewa dida tangche radongo disa shebe gyawa tangche che owa kongla chodo ngaba de dagi ge zawa dege jong zambo sheje radongo wa Gangri rawe goye jingonze bendan dewa mali jongwe ne chere ziwon tenzo danzo ye shabe side bado denjoro
소소 겨와 고도고 사요 바티다 니발라 때는 겨와 토지 침비 조시피다 시부터 뭐 간가 끝에 땜바도 그 공부가래나 반드비 저는
So through the virtuous karma that we have accumulated, we dedicate this to, in particular, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, being able to have great longevity and health, and along with all other holy beings, abide very long in this world to continue to benefit.
소망년바그리 가와해나 유파 처바시와는 신이 강기질 송바송바 땜보 어지거든 다야보 로타야
May all of those beings who possess evil thoughts, may their evil-mindedness be completely purified through the force of our merits, and may they only give rise to thoughts of loving kindness. May the sun of happiness shine on all 6 types of beings within samsara without discrimination. So we'll pause there. And of course, if you need to get on with your day, you may, but if you would like to ask some questions, you are most welcome. Does anyone? Oh, Deki Lee, yes, go ahead.
Hello. I'm back.
Let me just turn up the volume a bit, Deki Lee, because you're a bit faint. Just give me a moment.
Okay, here we are. Back to Happy Monk's publications. I'm trying to find that discussion between ignorance and wisdom, but it isn't there as that. Can you give me the author?
Oh no, I looked at it just literally 2 weeks ago. So I'm very sorry. I looked at it literally just 2 weeks ago. Anyways, if people are interested in a copy, it is not copyrighted. I believe I have it. So maybe, how should we do this?
I can help with that, Kedru. Maybe
if
you send
thank
it to
you.
Me?
Yes, thank you. Awesome, Manoshi. So I will try to get it to Manoshi so that she can get it to all of you. Thank you. I didn't want to put something else on your plate, but since you volunteered, we'll take it.
Sure, sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Does anyone else have something? I see Dana. So Geshe actually plans to teach this text for sure, this debate between self-grasping and ignorance and wisdom. And he wants to make sure we do it, we can do it in a relaxed way, right? When we have a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Dana, I see your hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for a very, very compelling teaching again. My question is, can you advise me of a practice I can do every day for the simple purification of negative karma? Is there a mantra or meditation that can be done every day?
Nganso nima re dipa jangya gi nyamlen chik soyguna gomjabya chik yores ngaksaya chik yores di kandes chik sogres.
Yeah, that is it.
So just to start, actually, you could keep it really simple by reciting the refuge and bodhicitta prayer like we do at the beginning of the teachings, and then doing a meditation on the 4 opponent powers.
This one, that's Sita Yakarasita, no Tanis, Sujisita, Karina, that, that's also distilled.
And you can do this visualizing receiving lights and nectar from the Buddha in a way for purification, right? It depends on how much time you have.
And
then, Donna, if you have more time, there's a sutra known as the Sutra of the Three Heaps, or the Sutra of the 35 Confession Buddhas. And this involves calling out the names of 35 Buddhas. So you could recite that as well, for example.
This one, and
of course, you know, any practice we do for any deity like Tara or anything else, within those we have the 7 limbs, and the limb of confession is there, so we can just pause there and kind of focus on that if we want. Yeah, because within the 7 limbs we also have the 4 opponent powers, so familiarizing yourself with the 7 limbs and the 4 opponent powers, that's also going to be really helpful. And there's also, of course, the meditation recitation practice of Vajrasattva, who is the Buddha of purification. So, you know, you can recite the mantra, definitely, but in the future, if you can receive the initiation of that and practice Vajrasattva, this is also very good. So usually we combine the recitation of the mantra of Vajrasattva along with the 4 opponent powers. Oh, so it looks like, Carol, are you saying it's on the website? Yes, okay, it is. Okay, good. So then we don't, yes, okay, great. So Donna, did we answer your question?
You did. Thank you very much.
Great. Yeah.
That was really helpful.
Does anybody else? Dave, Marta, yeah. And then maybe we'll do Dave. Go ahead, Marta.
We have 3 on YouTube, but go ahead first, Marta.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Dave. Yeah, go ahead, Marta.
Hello, Geshe, Kedrup, everybody. So in this planet,
Dear Marta, I can't hear you. Is it just me, or are other folks having problems as well? For me, the sound's really faint.
Can you hear me right now or no?
No, I think I'm going to turn my volume up. Hold on. Good exercise for Kedra. Okay, let's try again. Go ahead, Marta.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now it's a little better. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So it's about the purification. I was impressed now, or it's a new information that with the bodhicitta, with the thought of the bodhicitta, we can purify.
Yeah.
And it has logic because we are in a planet where the I is the one that don't let us love. But I want to know that more deeply, because the root of the suffering is this I, and this I is the ignorance, but the ignorance of what?
Okay, yes. Okay, I think I got you, Marta. I think I got you. Nganso nguma di dipa jampe kabala deni jangshu gi sem dipa janya gi tap so da pochik deni gendi gimsen she so deni nganso yang di tangzen marigba chik lagi yores karin sen nganso zamboling mi nepa kaya dang dipa denso chatsanwa tangzen la tene yongi yores rwa ine tangzen seria di Kare ne marigpa. Dak ne marigpa yores ine dak kare ne marigpa res. Di tangze marigpa kandes chik res.
Me danze marigpa sen penda nganzong machira no andro masona. No andro sa de koropuge tempo chi nginzachi. Akosong.
Yeah. So let's think about how the ignorance grasping at the self sees things as a way of answering this question. When you encounter a person you don't like, through the lens of the ignorance grasping at the self, you're going to say that that person is stable and self-existing. That's the story that the ignorance grasping at the self is going to tell you. But actually, whether we talk about the I ourselves or whether we talk about that other being, including the person that we're angry at or that we dislike, they only come together through an assembly of various causes and conditions. They arise dependently. Ignorance can't see that. It's going to tell you there's a unitary self-existent thing. And when it's somebody that you don't like, it's going to say, that's the person that I'm mad at. And he or she is like that. And it's going to give you a very solid view. It's going to say, the ignorance grasping at the self is going to deceive you that that person is there in and of themselves, not depending on anything else solidly. And this ignorance grasping at the self, because it's telling you that each of those things is independent and self-existent, we grasp at their solidity. We believe that the way that we see them is real, and we are compelled more easily to get angry, to experience attachment, and so forth. So it's like okay, you can to give an example, ignorance grasping at the self is saying, okay, like there's that person there, and yes, there is that person, but the lens of the ignorance grasping at the self exaggerates it. So it's almost like it takes a person that's made out of flesh and blood and turns them into something solid like stone. Like rock. So when we develop our wisdom, of course, we're not going to be able to realize wisdom fully from the beginning, but the more that we develop our wisdom, first of all, we'll purify negativities, yes, but we'll begin to deconstruct this false way that we see things that creates so much of our confusion. And we'll also begin to understand that part of what we're seeing in that other person, right? And also we understand that when we develop this reasoning based on the external object of the other object, the I of that person and the I of ourselves are the same, right? So we can apply the same reasonings. So hopefully that answered a little bit, Martha.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Geshe said these are things that require, continuous contemplation. We have to come back to them. Dave, go ahead. Sorry, you had some questions.
Yeah. So we have three good questions. First one from Katya. Let me back up. Yeah. Please, could you provide alternate? Oh no, that was me. Okay, yeah, here we go. If one has a mental issue, is the point to get healthy, or is it to simply recognize that you have a mental issue?
So when we say mental issue, is there any way to communicate with this person? Are we speaking, because I think this is important, are we speaking of like a mental illness, or are we just speaking of like an affliction? Because to me, those are both mental issues, right?
Yeah. This was early on. This is yeah, we can ask. Maybe we can get a follow-up because it's speaking about being healthy, right? So mental issue would be a mental health.
A mental
issue.
illness, then.
Yeah,
so let's just assume that,
yeah,
and then if we're mistaken, the person can jump in. Okay. Nganso perna sem tang mepa gi kangelyona. Nganso pet kandeslagore sem gi truten. Yapochik sogeres yamena nganso sem gi tang mepadi ngusingores. So chik.
Magenda sege soso
So.
sento do mena. ane
nganzo mikul karares pet yabo chayares nganzo tang meba ngosinyares.
mara ta tedo tmi gar soso komba chyoga garo yana tel se tembo chine yar tu yak ta so karo was
Chi yaru droges nganzo meba sogre tama
ya se duja de meba so ya ta
Yeah.
karo was
No, so Geshe is just saying, yes, no, we want to be healthy, right? We want to try to clear that away. And the way that we do that is we try to cultivate the opposing factor to whatever that mind is. But Geshe said at the same time, he realizes we may not be able to completely clear it away. So then we try to improve it. But to me, this question actually is very ambiguous. So hopefully the person says more.
temba mendo ya momo yungu yara was stage le temba so ya koro komba chega garo yana teji yong she tani yar yungu
So Geshe says it's a force of habituation, right? It's a force of habituation. That's part of what the story is here. So he's taking a very, I think, Geshe is smart. He took a very politically correct example. Let's assume we're forgetful. Let's just say that what we're struggling with is forgetfulness. So what do we cultivate as a measure of reducing that forgetfulness? We try to remember things, and we start maybe with just short things. We cultivate a habituation of remembering.
당기 가서 운중의 고자서 왔더니 고자는 밑받친 거를 대해서 뭐대야 저리세.
And Geshe said also for developing, more of a steady mind, right? Especially during times of distress. He thinks that the breath can be very helpful, right? Just as a means of balancing ourselves. Anyways, Dave, I think we leave it here, but if the person wants to clarify that, absolutely welcome to.
Yeah, illness. They're saying illness. Yeah.
It is illness. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then that answer was hopefully the right answer. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So and Rachel is asking, and then we also have Acto Ergo Sum, a really good question. So Rachel's question is, from what I understand, a realization of emptiness cuts off seeds to bad karma. But there are stories of the Buddha experiencing the ripening of negative seeds after he realized emptiness. Why is that?
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Relates to the story we had today, doesn't it?
Yeah, the headache.
Yeah, exactly. Nanso, tompa ni seria di roa sabun denso ginupa chatsanwa kogire duas yene dering drung nanglo laya roa sangye pejela dane disena tompa chomdende toni ngosu to pejela go chik nasons di kare chesons di donda kare
mara ta te nga china siwo du ya mara le pejanola
yeah
enda ngaro so lende se ti sabor da sa ti da
loso
yeah ngaro so do sin lojo mate garwa
yeah
the lende se da ti sabores za che garmato
ale dene ngene go nagi omares
jangine china yung go yoji mares ta ina siwo ya mares pe na le.
So Geshe said that he hasn't found an answer for this in the scriptures himself, but he's thought about it. And his answer to it is that he doesn't think that the Buddha was actually necessarily experiencing a headache. He thinks that the Buddha manifested a headache to kind of relay the importance of karma and how results of karma can take a very long time to ripen as a teaching.
Hakoson. Doa meme tale ta che maradas tenda trichi al son to ya chi yares.
Loso.
Chi chena yo andi ge shawachi le tige nipan rawo chi pa tsoma so ya che ta. Ta ti sen regum ta zo tere.
Yeah. So he would say that it's that answer that that maybe the Buddha is saying this just as a way of having a teaching on karma.
Pena. Tatila ke sa jidwa. Pena ni ti da chon batni la ko na zo ta sa hale ka ngi chimbo tni usi batni
and certainly the Shravakas as well, right? The foe destroyer disciples of the Buddha. In the stories of the Buddha's life, there's all kinds of examples about how they actually encountered many unpleasant things, right? So there's something to think about there.
So
Geshe said he can't give you a definite answer, but his best guess would be that the Buddha manifested the headache in that case, just as a way of conveying the subtlety of karma and how long it can take to ripen.
대면면 가서 간저 손지 구발 뉴치 수수와 전문하고
Yeah.
군발
Yeah.
전문하고
Yeah. And so it would be the same, there's a story also about the Buddha having a thorn or something sharp caught in his foot, right? And using the experience of that as an occasion to teach his disciples. There's all these messages coming up. I'm not following what's happening. Don't pay attention, he said. Yeah.
뭔가빠 저것도 된 바이자.
Yeah.
니 되게 전문도자 되지 강가 돈을 사자 연다지 유이스.
Right. So this occasion of the thorn, this became an occasion for Modgalyayana, right? He actually tried to clear all of the thorns so that it was never possible that the Buddha would be able to step on a thorn again. And this became a teaching where Buddha said, you have to solve the problems of samsara. You cannot completely remove every single thorn from samsara. Yeah. So this experience also became like the occasion for the Buddha to give a teaching. So Geshe said it's not in the scriptures, but that would be his best guess as to an answer. So I saw a bunch of questions coming.
Yeah, we'll cover that later. We have one more question from Active Orgosum.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave. Yep.
And then from Jessica.
Okay.
So Active Orgosum's question is: knowing anatta and emptiness and ultimate dissolution, maybe anatman, but anyway, anatta and emptiness and ultimate dissolution.
What's ultimate dissolution? What is that?
Similar to anatman and emptiness, perhaps.
But dissolution means like something kind of. I'm trying to figure out how to translate it. That's
everything dissolving into emptiness.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Anyway, the three synonyms probably: anatman, emptiness, and ultimate dissolution. How can I motivate myself to do my worldly duties well?
Okay.
If the material world is impermanent, why should one even care?
So, nanso chatsangwa mitakares, chatsangwa tongnires, deninge jiktangi chawa karechene donang tegores, chatsangwa mitapa dong tompares, donang karechene tegores, mitse deala. So everything is empty and everything is impermanent. Yes, but we still need happiness, right? We still need those worldly moments of happiness, right? To stay sane. So that's why.
Yeah,
we want to see an end to our problems, right? We want to see an end to our suffering. And impermanence also gives us hope that there is going to be an end to those problems and suffering. Yeah. And think about them in a positive way rather than a negative way. Sorry, all these messages. Okay. So think of them in a positive way rather than a negative way. So it is because of emptiness that our suffering can come to an end and that there can be a happiness. And it is because of impermanence that experiences are not everlasting. And we know that there will be an end to those difficulties. In fact, a lasting happiness and completely clearing away suffering is because of emptiness and impermanence. So Geshe would suggest it like that. And once we understand emptiness and impermanence, the wisdom that arises from that is completely able to clear away all of our difficulties.
This one,
yeah. It's thinking that we're permanent, thinking that we really exist in a way that's contrary to how we actually exist, that keeps us within samsara. So hopefully that answered that one.
And so then, Jessica, would you like to unmute and ask your question? Or maybe Shy? I can try to summarize.
Yeah, no, I saw many things coming up, Dave.
Okay.
So maybe you summarize, and then if she wants to add something, she can type more. But maybe, try to summarize, because for me, it was information overload a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, where is the? I'm looking through the chat here for it. Yeah. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Okay. So how? Jessica had put in the chat. How did I know enlightenment without 20 years of studying? Less than 2 years. I know I'm unique, but then there's subsequent, like, I'm one of the grossest people ever, but also because of illness, epilepsy, leading to being alone for so long. There's so much experience of pain. Like I may not know, but I know all caps. So there's so there's a sense of wisdom here, but it's not a wisdom from a lot of study, but it's a very deep knowing.
Right.
So how does that happen?
What has happened? So there's been a knowingness from experience, but was the question, is that enlightenment? Because enlightenment was also, so I'm trying to tie together.
Yeah. How does one, without a great deal of study, have really strong sense of knowing of the truth of this?
Oh, okay. All right. Nanso dungel mambo nyongna roa perna ko tutu ringpo natsa mambo dua. Tene dela tene dungel mambo nyong ane nyamyong mambo sa nangshu ginesu di sheda lobchong chegyo mares ine nyamyong la tene shepa sherab dapochik yongire duas lobchong ma chenegi sherab di kandes chik yongire sa.
Mimita lojo machenengi nesu ta mongochi thoya yuara wasishira la tane. Akosara ta ina yo te pwete eze ti sara tune la. Thuin jakarre da ma thuin jakarre te jigo tobu.
So Geshe would say that in fact it is very possible to develop many kinds of wisdom through the things that we experience and see in our lives, right? So he's not saying that the only kind of that wisdom only comes from study. But what he would say is that, so what he would say is that study is necessary to be able to develop the wisdom to understand those more profound things. So to be able to understand them in a more profound way, that requires study. But to develop wisdom through experience, definitely this is possible.
Mimi tanda koro thoayo de shirayo de digin duyo amarwas nangye nes sosol pge akolongo ya pochi do de jingene chiloya ta gachiklarwas.
So what we have to do is take the wisdom of our experience of those difficulties, for example, from our illness, but we have to conceptualize that through study, through developing our understanding into a path towards freedom from suffering. Because ultimately, we want to make sure that our wisdom is going to lead us to a path to freedom from suffering. So Geshe would say that. But he's not denying that there's many sort of more evident layers of reality, we could say coarser layers of reality, that we can develop a profound wisdom about through our life experience, right? He's not denying that.
Would it be fair to say that study gives us a framework that allows us to correctly interpret the experiences we are having?
Nanso lobchong la tening anso semnang la sabja yore ane nyamyong dinso ngunegi gyumsen tets ting sawa hakoya yore besa.
Ya tate yor was tanganzo noji masega nyonyo do pge ineshi de atenin tan dewa don ine kandisre. Tate tisabo ya shu ta yoga tel kandis do.
Yeah, so we have to kind of combine our study with our life experience to make it real. And the study is also going to allow us to understand and conceptualize those life experiences in a deeper way.
Yeah, and to be able to make choices that move us forward, because we have this conceptual framework that allows us to interpret our experiences and so that we can choose the right path. Yeah.
Dene nganso nyamyong la tene lobchong chena dene nganso lamka yaga duga yewa cheagi netso yongirevesa.
Yeah, so chimochi ngene chena tanda di yaga zenglaris.
Yes, and in fact, when that's informed by the feelings that we've developed from our experiences, the feelings and the knowledge are going to come together in a more powerful way to give a good choice, in Geshe's opinion. Often people who have those experiences and who have, felt those intense things, it's actually going to help them to study more and more deeply because there's more at stake, actually.
If
we're not really facing anything difficult and like it's just kind of a passing interest, then the study can just be like playing around, but we're not going to feel a sense of urgency in trying to apply it to our life, right?
Yeah. Does that help, Jessica? It's a long road.
Yeah, it's a long road. And don't get discouraged. And I think this is the first time we saw Jessica. So, I mean, it's like as you listen more, you'll be able to connect more things with your experience. It will start to come together. So I would say, just, see if this is for you, just try and think about some of the different ways of thinking and see what happens, right? So Geshe said he did think he saw a hand from somebody. Did anyone have their hand up or have we covered everyone? Decent. So Geshe said if there's no hands, then we're going to leave the session here. Thanks everybody for your questions and take care. Take care, everybody. Yeah, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Remember, next week, Khenpo Pema is here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.